John O'Keefe knew something and he was going to leak it out, and they had to stop it from happening because it would have exposed them. John O'Keefe was getting ready to expose the mafia.
You went with Trooper Proctor, correct?
I took my cruiser to 34 Fairview.
This guy can't answer a question. And by the way, I just realized something. The jury's never going to believe that did not think that this was a homicide because he had blood like coming out of his eyes. Remember that?
Those solo cups were placed in the evidence bag uncovered.
Yes.
It wasn't forensically sealed.
Not at that time, no.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Buckle Up. It's the law, folks. We got a big day today. Today, right now, we are premiering the finale, part 2 of Lieutenant Paul Gallagher, the most incompetent Canton lead investigator of the scene that you can possibly imagine. The leaf blower guy, the guy who's gonna go, you know what, let me just blow all this evidence to high heaven because who cares? It's just a dead body. It's not anything important. It's not anything that we really truly care about. We care about more important things, such as taking care of our own. So, I bring you Lieutenant Gallagher, followed by The Shoe at 7 p.m. Let's go!
So now we got that cleared up. Let me ask you again. Did you say in front of Trooper Tully that you accompanied Trooper Proctor and members of the CARS unit to document Fairview Road?
Meaning they were documenting Fairview Road. It's not clear. The report's not clear. They were going to document Fairview Road, not me.
So you just said something that I want to follow up on.
Okay.
The report's not clear, correct?
That's correct.
So that's an inaccurate report.
I wouldn't call it inaccurate at all. I'm just saying you're misinterpreting the wording.
Oh, you're
I see.
misinterpreting.
And I'm misinterpreting it even though I just read it directly from the report?
Yeah, sometimes sentences have different meanings.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay. All right.
The reality is you did end up going to the scene, correct?
I did.
And you accompanied, I don't want to use a word that you'll challenge, you went with Trooper Proctor, correct?
I took my cruiser to 34
Okay.
Fairview, yes.
You were there at the same time Trooper Proctor?
This guy can't answer a question, like, straight. Like, yeah, I went with Trooper Proctor. No. I took my cruiser there. And you met Trooper Proctor there. Oh, yes. Like, dude.
Yes.
And you were aware that the CARS team was there so that they could document the scene, correct?
I don't know what the purpose of the drone was. I'm not familiar with that section. I thought I answered that question. I'm not familiar with what they do.
But you do believe that as you sit here, you were there, we weren't. You do
Right.
believe that that's the reason that they were there was to document the scene.
Put up a drone.
Okay.
I don't know what you mean by document. I don't know if it was to photograph, I guess, which if you
For
mean
the
by
love of God,
document
man.
photograph, I guess it could, I would agree. If it means take measurements, I wouldn't know.
Okay. Did you tell any of the members of the CARS team where you believed John's body was?
I believe it was Trooper Proctor, but I believe he was there, yes.
Trooper Proctor obviously was not there when John's body was there either, correct?
That is correct,
So
yes.
he would have gotten that information.
From you. That is correct.
So now that's 3 people.
It's probably more, quite honestly, yeah.
Well, I'm just talking about this report.
Correct.
The CARS report. That's 3 people in line, none of whom saw John's body, John O'Keefe's body, as it lay in the lawn when he was recovered.
That is correct, yes.
And there's no photographs
Of,
of Mr. O'Keefe
oh, no.
at the location.
No, we wouldn't, nobody would photograph somebody undergoing life-saving measures. Wouldn't be appropriate.
There's no video, specifically.
They wouldn't take video of somebody,
That's not true. That is 100% not true. I have represented deceased clients in federal court before. 1983 actions, for those of you who may not be familiar, it is when you file a lawsuit against a police officer for injuries and or death that may have caused you or your loved ones, which is the kind of work that we do at my firm, 1-844-774-HURT. I have watched videos of police officers actually doing and performing life-saving measures on their body cam after an individual was shot and doing a very, very poor, terrible job at it, obviously, because they're the ones who shot them. They're like, well, we just shot the guy. Why should we save him? It's very cruel, very crass, very... Watching a man dying on video is not an easy feat. It's a very difficult thing to watch. And it desensitizes you a little bit as an attorney. So, like, we're very good at wrongful death cases because of that, because I can separate my emotions personally from the video. So Gallagher lying through his teeth saying it would not be appropriate to videotape. Like, of course, if you just bust out your cell phone and be like, yo, check out the dying guy over here. Yes, that would be inappropriate, but Lieutenant Tolley, do you have your body camera on so that you may capture everything that we are doing here today? Yes, I do, Lieutenant. Thank you, Sergeant. Where's the problem? Let me know in the comments below if you think that's a problem, if Gallagher is right, because I don't think he is.
Life-saving measurements.
There's no body cam.
We don't have body cameras.
There's no dash cam that shows it.
Well, dash cameras would be on the road. Mr. O'Keefe was approximately 8 to 10 feet off the road.
Well,
yeah, but you could angle a car to point in that direction. It's not incompetence. Remember, not incompetence. It's criminality. They are criminals protecting criminals. They are criminals with badges protecting other criminals with badges, or former badges. Criminals with former badges, like Brian Albert. Criminals protecting criminals. That's all they are. There's no incompetence here. This is all intentional.
you're not sure where Mr. O'Keefe was because you never saw him.
That's why I used a range, yes.
Right. So you don't know,
I know where the blood was, I know where the glass was.
right. But you don't know if he was 7 to 9 feet off. If he
That's
was
correct.
4 to 12 feet off. You can't say.
I could, only approximately, you are correct, yes.
You did meet with Officer Seraph. You met with all the officers when you arrived at the scene, correct?
Yes,
And Officer Seraph had been there from the beginning of the morning.
yes.
Officer Seraph didn't report to you at that time any statements attributable to my client, did he?
He did not know.
You later went back to 34 Fairview with Sergeant Lank,
That's correct.
and you rode back. Did you ride back to Canton PD with Sergeant Lank or separate cruisers?
Which time? I
I'm
apologize.
sorry. That's a vague question on my part. You went back to 34 Fairview with just Officer Lank, and you described the circumstance in which you went in, you were let in by Brian Albert, he went to the kitchen, you were in the family room or some other place.
Right by the kitchen, yeah.
Right by the
room
kitchen.
off the kitchen, yes.
Okay, so right next to where he was interviewing
That's correct.
Jennifer McCabe.
Yes.
Did you ride back from that meeting with, or that event to Canton PD with Sergeant Lank?
Yes.
And Sergeant Lank didn't say anything to you about his interview with Jennifer McCabe at that time.
I don't recall our conversation on the way back.
Of course you don't.
And you didn't write a report about
'Cause that would help
any
the defense.
conversation that you had with Officer Seraph. You didn't write a report about any conversation you had with Sergeant Lank.
No, they're responsible for writing their own reports.
Got it. You did say that let me back up and ask a different question. You testified about a year ago in another proceeding. You talked a little bit about the evidence collection of the bio.
By the way, real quick, you testified in another proceeding. He's talking about trial number 1. For those of you who may be thinking, let's go back a little bit.
Testified about a year ago in another proceeding. You talked a little bit about the evidence collection of the biological material, the blood, or I'm guessing at that time, presumed blood. You haven't done any testing.
That's correct, yes, sir.
But you
Red cell
assumed it was
counts.
blood just because of your experience and it looked like it could be blood on the suit.
That's correct.
How far were you from Canton PD? Approximately. It's a drive.
Mile and a half.
Mile and a half. You had your cruiser with you,
I had my personal vehicle with me.
your personal vehicle. In other words, your ambulance where you could get from point A to point B if you wanted to.
Yeah, I was the scene supervisor. I wasn't leaving the scene.
Okay. But you also had subordinate folks at the scene that you could have dispatched had you wanted to.
Correct.
They all had cruisers
Yes, they did.
or personal vehicles. I'm not sure which.
I'm sorry?
Or personal vehicles, I'm not sure which.
I was the only one with a personal vehicle. Detective Sergeant Lank had a Toyota Tundra pickup truck that is not marked, but it's assigned to our detective unit.
So if you wish to, as the ranking officer at the scene, you could have dispatched one or more of those officers to run an errand, to go do something in furtherance of the investigation, had you wanted to.
Yeah, I actually did that.
Okay, you did. What did
Yes.
you do in that regard?
Remember, I sent Sergeant Good to get the leaf blower.
Got it. You also know that Canton PD has evidence collection bags at Canton PD.
Yes.
You also know that they have materials and tools to gather biological material, correct?
We do have swabs, yes.
And those swabs go in little containers to maintain their sanitary nature, correct?
That is correct,
In
yes.
other words, if you see a blood stain, you don't just walk up with a Kleenex that you find on the ground and wipe it up. There's your blood stain. There is a process for gathering that type of evidence, correct?
Sure, if you're looking for DNA, you can use a bloody Kleenex, to your point.
You know, a random thought that just occurred to me, just looking at Alessi with his head down, focusing, reading, preparing whatever he's preparing next for the trial, and, you know, Yannetti focused, and Ms. Little focusing on the witness, and Jackson questioning the witness, and Karen, of course, relying on all four of these lawyers to help her. Far be it from me to be judgmental, because I'm trying not to be, but it literally feels, I never thought about this before. You know how in high school you have the cliques, and we have the preppy kids, you know, the preps, we've got the goths, we got the nerds, we got the jocks, we've got like the beauty clique, we got the video gamer clique, which sometimes overlaps with the nerds. We got the weebs. You know, there's like all of those different categories in high school. Everybody kind of hangs out with their clique. In the real world, those cliques continue. The jocks gonna stay with the jocks. They become police officers. They play professional sports. They become gymnasts, athletes, runners. And then the nerds, they become engineers. They become lawyers. They become doctors. They become school teachers. You know, there's a lot of nerds who become school teachers too. Like, it's not like because you're a nerd, you're guaranteed to make like more money than everybody else in life. That's not true. Nerds also fall into different, and I'm sure there's some jocks out there who are multimillionaires because they play in the NFL. We know who they are. You know who they are. This battle right here, it just struck me. It's the nerds versus the jocks with very, very high stakes. The jocks are accusing an outsider of murder she didn't commit, and the nerds are there to come in, swoop in, and defend her. It's actually really cool. It's really, really cool. I never thought about that before. Just random thoughts.
It'd be kind of an emergency.
Yeah, absolutely. My point exactly.
But if you're a mile from the Canton PD,
Yeah,
you could have gone back and gotten a swab.
could have.
But you didn't.
Didn't want to because of the weather, because you just said because it's an emergency, and we thought it was an emergency there. I mean, the storm was coming down terribly, and I believe if we didn't collect that biological matter, we weren't going to get that biological matter.
But Canton PD was a mile and a half away.
Karen's got something.
4 or 5 minutes.
In a blizzard.
Still, in a blizzard, look, it's 3 minutes in good weather, probably 4, 5, 6 minutes in a blizzard, correct?
I'm not sure.
So let's call it 12, 15 minutes. You certainly could have gone back. If you wanted to, you could have dispatched one of your officers to go back and get swabs and properly collect the blood material.
Sure. And I believed 15 minutes would have made a difference.
And what you did instead is...
If you missed it, Karen just passed a note to Ms. Little to give to Yannetti whenever, because he was in the middle of questioning. She didn't want to interrupt him.
Well, 15 minutes would have made a difference, but you asked Sergeant Good to drive to his house and get a leaf blower.
Yes, and while he was doing that, we were documenting the scene with photographs.
You could have documented the scene with photographs even if you went back and get a swab. What's the difference?
Because we were ongoing. It was ongoing. I wasn't leaving the scene.
I didn't ask you to leave the scene. I mean, I didn't ask if you were
I
leaving the scene.
needed the other officers. We talked about scene security. I already let one officer go. I now have 3 left. We're securing that scene.
So you saw pink stains in the snow, correct?
That's correct.
And you said, Officer Good, probably called him Sean, Sarge, go home and get a leaf blower.
That is correct.
Could have said, Officer Mulaney, get your butt over to Canton PD and pick up 10 swabs, correct?
He wouldn't have had access to the swabs.
Oh, so now one of your officers could have gotten the swabs, even if the lieutenant or ranking lieutenant had dispatched him to go get a swab?
Because he doesn't have access to the BCI, the office of BCI, where our stuff is kept.
Could you have made a phone call?
No, nobody there would have had access at that time. It was only Officer Dever on the desk.
So you're the only person that could have gotten those swabs?
Sergeant Lang could have gotten them as well.
So Sergeant Lang could have too?
Sure.
But you didn't say that?
No, definitely didn't.
Okay. What you did do, however, is you went to the neighbor's house. Happened to be Tom Keller, right?
The lieutenant of detectives, yes.
Right. And Lieutenant Keller gave you red solo cups.
Yes. I asked for plastic or glass containers. He had solo cups, and I utilized them.
The same kind of solo cups that we all see at backyard barbecues.
Yep, they hold liquid terrifically.
Trying to.
They're also not sealed,
Yep.
correct?
They are not.
They're also not used normally. I mean, they were here. They're not normally used for evidence collection, correct?
Oh, absolutely not.
And then you decided you needed to transport that very important biological material back to Canton PD for storage and safekeeping, right?
That's correct.
And why was it important to transport that blood material so quickly? What are the factors that you considered weighing?
Here's another thought. Is it possible? Because if you guys have been following my tweets, I tweeted the other day, there was this gentleman who reached out to us and he said that apparently there was national news right before John O'Keefe's murder by the McAlberts. John O'Keefe had knowledge or some sort of information about a police officer who got popped for like drugs, like dealing drugs and stuff like that. People say like, oh, there was jealousy and all that. I don't think Karen had anything to do with it. Like Brian Higgins and John O'Keefe both going for Karen, I don't think that would lead to an assassination. What led to the assassination was that John O'Keefe knew something and he was going to leak it out and they had to stop it from happening because it would have exposed them. John O'Keefe was getting ready to expose the mafia, the Canton mafia. I am even more convinced of this theory now than I have ever before. And the internet has done its due diligence and you guys found amazing information, and for that I'm very thankful to each and every single one of you who participated. And it's still not done. Keep going. There is tons of material out there that is eventually going to connect the dots and expose exactly what John O'Keefe knew. Their attempts at burying the truth is just not going to happen. It's not going to work. They're going to get exposed. And yes, they killed the one man who could have exposed them very easily in January of 2022. And the exposure will come 3.5 years later in 2025. I'm convinced that this is the year, folks. I really have no doubt in my mind that the truth is coming to get them, because there is just too many people, too many eyeballs. This is the one thing they did not predict when they thought, oh, mistrial. What Auntie Bev should have done, she should have dismissed claims 1 and 3, or excuse me, charges 1 and 3, and just kept charge number 2 and retried charge number 2 and called it a day. Bev's most egregious mistake was pretending like trial number 1 didn't happen for failure to question the jurors if they were unanimous on any charges and just accepting their verdict. That's all she had to do to be fair. It's when you're not acting fair that people raise ire. Like imagine I get hired on a case and I work for 3 months and the client paid me $3,000 and they say, okay, you know what, Larry, actually I found another lawyer and I think he's better than you or whatever. I don't care what the facts are, but you're fired, Larry. And I'll say, okay, here's half of your money back. Wait, why are you giving me only half? Because it's fair. Because I worked for 3 months, I've earned half of the fee, you can have the rest of it back. Well, I'm going to take you to the bar association. Go ahead. I'm going to win. Because what I'm doing is fair. I'm not telling you you get no refund. I'm not giving you all of your money back. I've done work. It's fair. And there are tons of cases out there where the Kentucky Bar Association just dismisses complaints outright because the lawyer did what is fair. And that's the same thing here with the Karen Reed case. Auntie Bev is not doing what is fair. Jackson and Yannetti at the time, and Little, before Alessi came on board, the three of them brought in affidavits of jurors' signatures. Excuse me, with jurors' signatures stating, Your Honor, we were unanimous on 1 and 3. We were unanimous 1 and 3. Unanimous 1, like 3 or 4 for sure, possibly even 5 affidavits. I forget exactly how many of the 12 jurors. I mean, they locked in 30%, 4 out of 12, at least. They locked in 30% of the jurors who came forward, swore an affidavit, signed off on it. And what Auntie Bev should have done, what was fair, is to dismiss charges 1 and 3 because of juror unanimity. And I promise you, this case would have had a lot less eyes on it because it'd be like, well, she did what's fair, so it's not as interesting. But it's the consistent and repetitive and relentless, unending unfairness. This ruling is unfair, and this ruling is unfair, and I'm going to exclude the ARCA witnesses, never mind, that was unfair, and I'm going to extend the buffer zone, that was unfair, and now she lost on it yesterday. For those of you who are not following, Mark Randazza, shout out to you, Mark. He is winning. Now Bev has to revisit. She has to re-rule. It was not narrowly tailored. Anytime you have to do First Amendment analysis, you have to look at balancing the public interest against government interest. And it must be narrowly tailored. That's the language. The language of your ruling of setting a buffer zone must be narrowly tailored. Now, last year they lost. This year they won because she expanded the buffer zone. She got cocky. She got confident. And now she's going to have to shrink that buffer zone at the very least and definitely modify it, which gives us more teeth in our case against Massachusetts State Police in representing Bao Nguyen. And this is no secret. I mean, I'm not like leaking any confidential client information or anything. This is just obvious. 2 + 2 = 4. This is all public information. Bao got the snot, beat out of him when he was slammed against a police cruiser. Everybody saw the video by now. It's out there. He was in a buffer zone that is now unconstitutional, needs to be modified. Auntie Bev has to modify it. 2 + 2 = 4. So I'm still working on trying to get Bao some money. It may be a while. Obviously, these things don't move fast. His case will probably resolve months after this case is over if I'm a betting man. But I'm trying to do my due diligence and get Bao the best representation that money can buy, like we do with all of our clients. So with all of that in mind, just remember, Bev just kept ruling unfairly. And when you do it over and over and so many times, eventually people get angry. Think back to the French Revolution. You're like, Larry, are you high? Like, what kind of drugs are you taking? Because I want some. Did you just compare a case in Massachusetts in 2024 and 2025 to the French Revolution in the 18th century? Yes, I did. And here's why. In 1790 whatever, the French people were having a very difficult time. They were having a very, very hard time. There was not enough to go around, and that included food. Here's the most important thing about people and revolutions and people revolting. People don't normally revolt. Revolution is an extreme measure, very extreme. Revolution comes at the tail end of a failed government. Like, look at Iceland in 2007 when they were, at least I've heard of one hanging of a politician. I don't know I think the photo was real. This is way before AI. Nobody talked about it. Nobody. Why? Because everybody was terrified. Every government in the world, every media working for the government in the world was terrified of spreading these news of how these bankers and politicians were getting killed in Iceland because of corruption, and the Icelandic people had enough and they just started hanging them, removing them from office, putting them in jail, and hanging some of them for their criminal acts. Where's the problem? You might think. They had every right to do so, and they did. And so to what extent, again, it's very unknown, it's very secretive. It's been almost 20 years since it happened. And you'll find very, very little information on the internet. Why? Because, again, it wasn't very perpetuated. It wasn't spread because they did not want it to spread to other countries. It was right around the time of the housing market crash is when it happened, because it affected the whole world, the American housing market crash. And I think somebody in Iceland probably was participating in that, and they lost a lot of people a lot of money. That's my guess, total guess. So that was a revolution, and they completely replaced their government. In 1798, the people of France were starving. There was no food. There was a food shortage. Now, that is, if you want a revolution, deprive people of their basic needs. Take away their homes, take away their shelter, take away their food, take away their ability to sleep. If they can't sleep, or they don't have a home, or they don't have where to stay, or they don't have food, you're going to get a revolution 110 times out of 100. That is just basic history, okay? So when you really think about it, the only reason the people of France revolted, the only reason, is because not only were they starving, the king and queen, Marie Antoinette very famously said, let them eat cake. Why did she say that? Because she had plenty of food. Her and her husband and her family living in a castle, basically, in a palace. Definitely a palace. I don't think it was a castle, because castles were already kind of almost extinct. Castles were more like a 12th century through like 17th century. That's when they were the most popular. This is like the tail end of the 18th century, 19th century. Palaces were built by kings back then. They didn't really live in castles anymore. There's only one castle that's still operational in the world, by the way. Did you know where that is? Liechtenstein. At least in Europe. I don't know about other countries, but in Europe, there's only one castle that's still being used that you cannot even go tour. You can visit and tour pretty much every other castle in Germany. Like I went to the Orova Castle in not Orova, sorry, Orava Castle in, was it Bulgaria? I forget. That's where they filmed Nosferatu, the first vampire movie ever made. Wonderful film, beautiful castle, really cool. If you ever get a chance, go see it. I went to Neuschwanstein Castle in Germany and the Hohenschwangau Castle, and also in Germany. We visited, I think it's the Celtic Castle over in Poland. I forget the name. It's called like the Red Keep or something. It's very red. It's gorgeous, kind of like Game of Thrones, very Game of Thrones-ish. There's lots of castles, but I digress. The French lived in a palace, and Marie Antoinette and her husband, Louis the whatever, 14th, I forget, let them eat cake. That was the epitome of the realization by the people, once word spread that this is what she said, that they have no idea what the people are going through, and they must take action, because if they don't take action, they will die. And when it's a matter of life and death, people revolt. And that's why they very famously beheaded the king and the queen, took power and into their own hands, replaced them, and fixed the food shortage, because the king and queen were apathetic at the very least, or criminally negligent at the very worst. So how does this relate to Canton in 2025, Larry? Great question, and I'll answer it right as you subscribe. The people of America and the world are watching this from the sidelines going, there is extreme unfairness happening in Canton, Massachusetts. A woman is being repeatedly, relentlessly being treated unfairly. And in their own way, the people are revolting on social media, because revolution doesn't necessarily come with pitchforks, torches, and, weaponry, or whatever you want to call it. Sometimes the weapon of choice is words. Sometimes the weapon of choice is simply coming out and saying, hey, there is a problem here. We need to fix it. And that's why you guys are tagging the FBI and Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And look, keep doing it, because at some point they may take notice eventually, and they may go, okay, wait a second. Like, something is desperately wrong here. Right now, you have to understand, Elon Musk works for DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and he is focused on making the country a better place. This is making Massachusetts a better place. country comes before Massachusetts. The world economics, the world trades come before local trades. So right now, Trump is cleaning up the mess that Biden left behind. And now the problem is they don't have time to focus on local stuff. Now give them a few months. Once things stabilize, they will start focusing on more local business. And once they figure out how to fix the Department of Education, which, God bless, that's going to be interesting. The gift also that was left by the former administration. I don't know if you know this, but a lot of default and defunct student loans are now being actively garnished as of my birthday, this past Monday, May 5th, which is kind of crazy to think about. But anyway, again, the most important thing that I want for you guys to take away from all this, like why did I start this whole rant, and I will get off my soapbox and we'll get back to Gallagher in just a second. When the people are unhappy, the people revolt. Period, the end. That's just the way it happens. And who is in charge of the government? Government employees. Here, we have government employees who are acting criminally, and the judge is acting criminally, and the prosecutor is acting criminally. They're all criminals working together, and the people see it, but because the only way to get them off or to get them to do something other than what they're doing requires the intervention of the higher-ups who may also be corrupt, you need outsiders like the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The CIA probably won't get involved. They're more international matters. They deal with more international matters. But the FBI will come in at some point and they'll say, okay, we have everything we need, and they're going to start making arrests. Because the FBI doesn't move until their case is under lock and key. That is a known fact. The FBI will never lift a finger until and unless they have all the evidence that they need. And once I've seen it firsthand, I have cases where the FBI is involved as the arresting agency. The CIA, no. The DEA, yes. I have FBI cases and DEA cases that I represent people on. And trust me when I say this, when a person gets arrested, they're going to have a jury trial within sometimes 2 months. Do you understand how fast this moves? You think state court, yes, we have cases going on for years without a resolution. Very common, not uncommon at all. In the federal courts, if you get arrested on April 1st, by God, you better be ready because jury trial is coming June 1st. Sometimes even May 15th. Like you have 6 weeks because the FBI and the DEA and probably the CIA, they don't screw around. If they're arrested you, that means they have something on you. Okay? And they're not going to make arrests and then figure things out later. They figure things out first and then they make arrests. They're unlike any other police agency in the country. They're very unique in that regard, and that's why I love dealing with the feds. I know it sounds weird to say a criminal defense lawyer loves dealing with the feds. Yeah, because they have their stuff together. When I email the assistant U.S. attorney, the AUSA as we call them, it's not like so, and like, well, we're still investing. No, it's did you receive all the discovery that we have? Have you reviewed it? Here's a preliminary offer. Let me know if you want to go to trial next week or if we're going to take a deal and see you at sentencing. I love that. I absolutely love that. I love all the federal work that we do. 1-844-774-HURT. We also do federal criminal stuff, by the way. Sentencing guidelines, very straightforward, very fun stuff to utilize and keep people out of prison when we can. Federal trials are extremely rare. Did you know that? About 2% of all federal cases actually go to trial. 98%. 98 is a staggering number of all federal cases brought before the court across all jurisdictions in all of the United States all get pled out. Fun fact for you for the day on this Saturday, May 10th. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to doing the video on the shoe, like I said, so don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss it. And the discrepancy of the shoe. Is it black? Is it white? So let's finish up Gallagher, and in a few hours I'll see you again for the shoe video.
Balance in terms of getting that material back to Canton PD in good condition, sanitary condition.
So a criminalist could extract a proper DNA sample.
What would happen, for instance, if that material, I don't know, were contaminated?
Contaminated how?
What do you mean?
Tell me, you're the professional.
So DNA is pretty hardy, pretty forensically stable. The only things that are going to harm it are radiation, ultraviolet light, harsh chemicals such as bleach.
Liar. What about
that's not
oxygen?
present here. I wasn't. Then you would have 2 sets of DNA when it's tested, which would benefit you.
Well, depends on whose DNA it is.
That's correct. That's correct.
Right. Yeah, a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
While you were, I'm going to stay on this for a second. So obviously, there's a reason why blood swabs or biological swabs are handled with such care. For instance, a DNA analyst is going to put on gloves.
Correct.
Oftentimes, they're going to put on a mask. Right?
I don't know about that.
Oftentimes, they put on goggles. Is that right?
It depends what they're testing.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you go out and collect something, you'll see CSI, crime scene investigators, in full body suits when they
Sure.
walk into a crime scene.
Yeah, you can.
Because you don't want to contaminate the scene with your own hair off your arm or an eyelash falling into a blood stain, correct?
That is correct.
Right. So there are protocols. I mean, you said just a second ago, Mr. Gallagher, well, it's DNA. Unless somebody pours bleach in it, you're pretty much golden, right? That's not quite the fact, is it?
And that's not quite what I said.
No, it's not
Oh my
quite what
God.
you said. You were suggesting that it's hardy enough that it doesn't really matter
No.
if it's contaminated or not. If there's multiple people's DNA, it just benefits everybody.
No, I simply asked what you meant by contamination.
Okay. So it could be contaminated with debris, is that right?
Sure, it can.
It could be contaminated with other people's DNA, is that right?
It can.
It could be contaminated with foreign items, foreign either aerosols or somebody's spittle when they're talking, correct?
Sure.
It could be contaminated with 1,000 things.
Hypothetically,
Right.
Hypothetically?
Of
No,
course, these solo
practically.
cups didn't have lids on them, right?
they did not.
They were open.
Yes.
You didn't photograph where you picked up the samples.
No.
You didn't document where you picked up the samples.
No.
So if the samples were in 6, how many solo cups were there?
6.
6 solo cups. We don't know as we sit here where each of those solo cups' contents came from specifically, do we?
Specifically, no.
Okay. Then those solo cups
Abhorrent.
with no lids were placed into a bag, right?
That's correct.
You said on direct examination that this was a brown paper bag, right?
It is. Stop and Shop, I believe.
And you said that Stop and Shop bag is, other than having the words Stop and Shop on it versus evidence on it, basically the one and the same thing.
Same dimensions, made out of the same materials, yes.
Right. But with an evidence bag, you know exactly where it came from and who's handling it.
Not necessarily.
What?
It comes from a manufacturer
Sure.
whose job it is to secure those bags so that they are not mishandled, so they can have some sort of bona fides that they're clean and ready to accept evidence. In, say, for instance, I don't know, the investigation of a homicide of a police officer.
Yeah.
Important stuff, right?
We're not at a homicide of a police officer at this point.
I'm just talking about evidence bags in general. Evidence bags in general. In other words, I'm trying to think of some of the most important investigations around. The manufacturers of those evidence bags manufacture them and send them in a way so that their bona fides, the provenance of those bags, is maintained, correct, and protected.
That's the way they ship them, yes.
Right.
This guy. And by the way, I just realized something. The jury's never going to believe that they did not think that this was a homicide because he had blood like coming out of his eyes. Remember that? He had blood like dripping down his face. That is not what happens. Any person who has been on this planet longer than 5.5 minutes will be able to look at it and say, okay, this is not just an accident. This looks like a homicide, chief or lieutenant or whatever. The reason they keep backpedaling and saying, well, we actually didn't know if it was a homicide or not, is to excuse their shoddy and criminal investigation. And when I say criminal, I don't mean it's a investigation of a crime scene. I mean their actions being criminal in the fact that they did not want to preserve any evidence and let it spoil, let it expire, let it be contaminated, because who cares? He's a rat. Nobody cares about rats, except the rats who follow Bao and Wen. Hola, los ratones. Thanks for supporting Bao.
And Canton PD pays extra money for those bags for that very purpose.
I'm sure they do, yes.
You mentioned almost tongue-in-cheek, look, except for the price,
Yeah.
they're probably pretty close.
Yes.
There's a reason that there's a price difference, right?
What would the reason? What's the reason?
Well, it's not the shop. I can go pay 10 cents
Yeah.
for that bag because I don't really give a hoot
You can track it. You can
where
track.
it's been or who's handling it.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I'm milking my eggs in it. Really don't care.
Yeah, I don't
You
know-
don't care.
I don't know how they price it.
Oh my God.
Because of how they package it, I don't have any knowledge of
Well,
that.
you're the one that mentioned the price. I'm just
Oh,
trying
no,
to
no,
make a
no.
point.
Yeah, I
There's a
agree
reason-
with you on that.
I'm sorry, we're speaking over each other. Okay.
I apologize.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gallagher, you gotta wait for me.
Yep.
There's a reason. My point is, there's a reason, right?
Yes.
That evidence bags are more expensive because there is a way they're manufactured and they're taken care of, and Canton PD is willing to pay that extra price, like every other law enforcement agency, because of that. Correct? All right. So they're not quite the same, are they?
No.
I love how he gives an answer, and Jackson's like, well, that's not really the answer. Yes, it is. Here's why it's not the answer. Oh, so you want to change your answer? Yes, I do. Like, the guy is just the snakiest snake I have ever seen.
Those solo cups were placed in the evidence bag uncovered.
Yes.
The evidence bag was then placed in Sergeant Lank's vehicle.
It was closed and Sergeant Lang transported it to his vehicle. Yes.
When you say closed, you mean the top of it was rolled up?
Correct.
Or folded over?
Correct.
Okay. It wasn't forensically sealed.
Not at that time, no.
There was no evidence tape that went on it.
Not at that time, no.
Matter of fact, the cups were still open and could slosh around.
Uh,
Assume they melted.
yes,
There's liquid blood and liquid water, like
that's correct.
snow.
That's correct.
And you indicated that those were, at least you believe, those were placed in an evidence locker, temporary evidence locker, correct?
No, the blood samples were put in a refrigerated unit.
My mistake. I thought the refrigerator was the temporary storage locker. It's different?
Yes, lockers are not refrigerated. That's where the glass would go into a locker.
Okay. This was placed into an evidence refrigerator.
That's correct.
That was to maintain the integrity of the sample, the biological sample inside the cups, correct?
That's correct.
Do you have an evidence log of that?
I don't know.
You've never seen an evidence log indicating that those were actually put into a refrigerated evidence locker.
I
Oh.
removed them myself, so I know they were in the refrigerated unit
When did you remove them?
on February 1st.
Right. We're talking about January 29th. They were taken to Canton PD by Officer Lang, Sergeant Lang, on January 29th. I'm just asking, well, let me ask a foundational question. Does Canton PD maintain something called evidence logs?
I don't know the answer to that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What is this guy on, man? You've never heard of an evidence log? You're kidding me, right? You're joking. Have you ever heard of the words chain of custody? Making sure that it's not broken and some unauthorized person comes in and get out of here.
No.
There is, it's all computerized.
Right.
So like I explained
Oh,
earlier.
oh, so it's the computer's fault. The computer didn't automatically log it like it's supposed to because no humans intervene in an investigation. It's all done by computer. I swear, these guys are just like, they like to point the finger. They're like the Spider-Man meme. No, it was him. And then that one's like, no, it was him. No, it was him.
When they do get logged in, the officer puts the description of the property, hits the space bar, and the computer generates an evidence number.
Okay. Okay.
And that evidence number is associated with just that piece of evidence.
Just that piece of evidence.
And did you
correct.
do that in
And
this
every
case?
time it's checked out or put back in, there is a log created.
Chain of custody.
Yeah, they do it by computer, yes.
It's a digital fingerprint.
Correct.
All right. I mean, you're a former narco specialist, right?
Mm-hmm.
You did narcotics for years, right?
I did.
Drugs, about the most sensitive thing out there, right? I mean, you get a bottle of fentanyl. You're not just going to go set it on the
course.
evidence subject's desk. You're going to make sure that damn thing gets logged exactly how it's supposed to, correct?
Of course.
Because it needs to have a trace of where it goes and who touches it and who has access to it, correct?
That is correct.
You've never seen an evidence log for these items that were taken from 34 Fairview and supposedly put into the, well, not supposedly because you took them out, and
That's correct.
ultimately went into a refrigerated evidence locker.
Yeah, I wouldn't have access to the evidence log. Our evidence room is a very strict process. There's only 2 people that can even have access to the permanent, once it goes into permanent evidence.
But that's not the point.
it's the admin
That's not
side-
the point. Some people may sometimes get unauthorized access, buddy. It happens. You can't say it's so foolproof. It never happens. Nobody believes you. The jury doesn't believe you. Jackson doesn't believe you. Trust me when I say this, even Brennan sitting there goes, no, I don't believe that. Nobody believes it. Except you, apparently. I don't think even Bev would believe that.
Sergeant that changes the custody when it comes out for court, if an item has to come out for court, or it has to be transported to another agency, or if an officer needs it removed from evidence for further inspection, the admin sergeant would take care of that.
That's the way it's...
Mr. Jackson, you're not going to finish today, right?
No, I'm
in
not.
2 minutes.
Two questions, and I'm also...
All right, 2 questions.
Thank you. That's the way it's supposed to work, correct?
Yes.
But you've never, as you sit here, you've never seen an evidence log determining where that blood went and who was handling it between January 29th and February 1st.
I have never seen an evidence log.
That's all I had, right?
That's it. That's it. That's all he needed. He got him locked in, and the jury is like, is this guy for real? There is no way he can get out of it. That's it. It's over. For Gallagher, it's over. Let's see if it's also going to be over for Connor Keefe, the shoe guy. Tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 4 p.m. Pacific. I'll see you guys there. Bye, everybody.